The flames licked at the edges of Jason Harper's cell, casting eerie purple shadows across the metallic floor. The heat had grown unbearable, and sweat poured down his face, mingling with the dried blood from the interrogation earlier. His wrists burned against the strange alloy of his restraints as he pulled desperately against them. If this is how they execute prisoners, it's certainly creative, he muttered to himself, coughing as acrid smoke filled his lungs. Captain Jason Jax Harper, formerly of the Earth Alliance Naval Forces, wasn't supposed to die like this, trapped in an alien prison cell as a mysterious fire consumed the Vimaran Royal Palace ship. He was supposed to be interrogated, probably tortured for Earth Alliance secrets, and then publicly executed as a warning to humans who dared resist the expanding Vimaran Empire. The explosion had rocked the massive vessel less than an hour after his imprisonment. At first, Jax thought it might be a rescue attempt by his squad, but the chaotic shouts in the alien language and the complete absence of human voices quickly dispelled that hope. Through the thickening smoke, Jax glimpsed movement outside his cell. Palace guards rushing past, their elaborate ceremonial armor now serving as ineffective protection against the spreading inferno. None spared a glance at the human prisoner they had taken such pride in capturing just hours earlier. Hey, Jax shouted, his voice raw. I'm still in here. Is burning alive without a trial part of your royal justice system? The guards ignored him, continuing their panicked evacuation. Jax slumped against the wall, calculating his remaining oxygen. Maybe 5 minutes, if the ventilation system kept functioning. After that, a small shadow appeared at the cell entrance, so slight that Jax initially thought it was a trick of the wavering light. Then he saw her, a small Vimaran child, standing calmly amidst the chaos, unlike the adults of her species, whose slate-gray skin and imposing height made them natural warriors. She appeared fragile, with skin that shimmered with an almost pearlescent quality in the firelight. She couldn't have been more than the equivalent of a 10-year-old human child. Her 4-fingered hand rested against the energy field that served as his cell door, her large, almond-shaped eyes studying him with unmistakable curiosity rather than the hatred he'd come to expect from her kind. And then, impossibly, she smiled. It wasn't the menacing display of sharp teeth that adult Vimarans use to intimidate their enemies. It was genuine, innocent, a universal expression of kindness that transcended species. In that moment, surrounded by fire and facing certain death, Jax felt an inexplicable surge of hope. The child looked over her shoulder, then quickly pressed something against the control panel. The energy field flickered and died. She gestured urgently for him to follow, then disappeared down the corridor. Jax didn't hesitate. With the cell barrier down, he could finally break free from his restraints by leveraging them against a sharp edge of the cell doorframe. The metal cuffs snapped, leaving painful burns around his wrists. But he was free. He stumbled into the corridor, disoriented by the smoke and the unfamiliar layout of the palace ship. The young Vimaran was nowhere to be seen. Had she been real, or just a hallucination brought on by smoke inhalation? A small hand suddenly grabbed his, pulling him to the right. She had returned, her eyes now urgent as she led him through the labyrinth of corridors. Jax noticed she was carefully avoiding the main evacuation routes, instead guiding him through what seemed to be service passages. They eventually reached a small chamber that appeared to be a private living quarter. The door sealed behind them, and the air immediately cleared as a separate ventilation system activated. "Thank you," Jax said, knowing she probably couldn't understand him. "You saved my life." To his astonishment, the child tilted her head and responded in halting, accented English. "You are welcome. Not safe. Outside." Jax stared at her in disbelief. "You speak English?" She touched what appeared to be a small device attached to her temple. Learning device. I study many languages. Why did you help me? Jax asked, still wary despite her intervention. The Vimarans weren't known for their compassion, especially toward humans. The child sat cross-legged on the floor, her movements graceful despite the gravity adjustments that must have been uncomfortable for her species. Grandmother says all humans evil, must see myself. She pointed to her own chest. I am Tala. Jax knelt to meet her at eye level. I'm Jason Harper, my friends call me Jax. He paused, processing her words. Wait, your grandmother thinks all humans are evil. Tala nodded solemnly. Grandmother is Queen Zarlvi. She rules all Vimara. Jax felt his blood run cold. He wasn't just in the presence of any Vimaran child. He was talking to the granddaughter of Queen Zarlvi, the ruthless monarch whose expansionist policies had resulted in the deaths of thousands of human colonists. The same queen who had personally ordered his capture after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where Jax's fighter squadron had managed to deal a rare defeat to the Vimaran fleet. Your grandmother will execute me if she finds me, Jax said quietly. Tala's expression grew troubled. Yes, but fire not accident. Bad people want hurt grandmother too. She touched the device on her temple again, apparently struggling to find the right words. Politics. Dangerous. You stay here. Safe for now. Before Jax could ask more questions, a chime sounded from somewhere in the room. Tala's eyes widened in alarm. Must go. Return soon. Food there. She pointed to what appeared to be a storage unit embedded in the wall. No leave room. Sensors everywhere. With that warning, she hurried to the door, checked something on a small screen, and slipped out, leaving Jax alone in what he now realized must be her private chambers. As the door sealed behind her, Jax took stock of his situation. He had gone from condemned prisoner to... what? The secret guest of an alien princess? He wasn't naive enough to think he was safe, but he was alive, and that was more than he could have hoped for an hour ago. He explored the room carefully, noting the strange mix of advanced technology and what appeared to be toys and learning materials appropriate for a child. On one wall hung a large display showing what must be the Vimaran homeworld, a gas giant orbited by habitable moons, their surfaces gleaming with the artificial light of sprawling cities. In another corner stood something that resembled an aquarium, except it contained no water, only a swirling luminescent gas in which tiny creatures floated, their bodies pulsing with bioluminescence. The food storage unit contained several packages of what he assumed was Vimaran food, likely inedible or even poisonous to humans, but also, surprisingly, what appeared to be emergency ration packs from an Earth Alliance vessel. War trophies, perhaps, but at least they would keep him from starving. As he examined an emergency ration, Jax's thoughts returned to the young Vimaran who had saved him. Tala had shown him kindness when her entire culture taught that humans were enemies to be conquered or eliminated. Why? Simple curiosity? Or was there something more to her interest in humans? Whatever her reasons, she had risked her own safety to rescue him. Now he needed to find a way to contact his squadron, escape the palace ship, and somehow repay the debt he owed to a child who smiled at her enemy when everyone around her called for his blood. The fire alarm eventually subsided, and Jax could hear the distant sounds of repair crews working. He wondered how extensive the damage was and who had orchestrated the attack. Tala had implied it was an inside job. Politics, she'd said. Palace intrigue, perhaps, or an attempted coup. Hours passed before Tala returned, this time carrying what appeared to be medical supplies and a small device that Jax immediately recognized as a standard-issue Earth Alliance communicator. Where did you get that? He asked, pointing to the communicator. Tala set down her supplies. Storage, many human things there, after battles. She handed him the communicator. Can fix? Need, talk to your people. Jax examined the device. It was damaged but potentially repairable. I might be able to get it working. But why would you help me contact Earth forces? Wouldn't that be treason against your grandmother? Tala's expression turned serious beyond her years. War bad. Grandmother not listen. Many Vimaran die too. She gestured to the communicator. Need humans talk peace, not more fighting. Jax was stunned. This child understood what many adult leaders on both sides seemed unable to grasp, that the conflict between their species would only lead to mutual destruction. The Vimarans might have superior technology and biological advantages, but humans had proven remarkably resilient and adaptive. I'll try to fix it, Jax promised. But even if I can contact my people, I'm just a fighter pilot. I don't have the authority to negotiate peace. But have friends? Tala asked hopefully. Friends with authority? Jax thought of Major Mira Jensen, his former squadron leader who now served as a strategic advisor to the Earth Alliance Defense Council. If anyone would listen to a peace overture, it would be Mira. Yes, he said, I have friends who might listen. Tala smiled again, that same genuine expression that had given him hope during the fire. Good. I learn more English. We talk more. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Tala would visit between her royal duties and lessons, bringing food and news of the palace. She explained that the fire had been contained before causing catastrophic damage, but tensions in the court remained high. Duke Ral Tek, her grandmother's chief advisor, was pushing for increased military action against Earth colonies, using the mysterious fire as evidence that stronger security measures were needed. During these conversations, Jax worked on repairing the communicator while teaching Tala more English. She proved to be an extraordinarily quick learner, her linguistic abilities far surpassing what Jax would expect from a human child her age. Tell me about Earth, she requested one evening, sitting cross-legged on the floor as Jax carefully rewired the communicator's power cell. Earth is beautiful, Jax said, pausing in his work. We have vast oceans, mountains, deserts, environments more diverse than any other planet I've seen. Who have oceans here too, Tala said proudly. On Elysia Moon, crystal waters with singing fish. Singing fish? Jax chuckled. I'd like to hear that someday. You will, Tala said with childlike certainty. When peace comes. She hesitated, then asked, You have family? The question caught Jax off guard. He rarely spoke about his personal life, even with fellow soldiers. But something about Tala's earnest interest broke through his usual reticence. I have parents back on Earth. A younger sister too, she's a scientist, studying xenobiology. She'd be fascinated by your world. What is her name? Eliza, she's brilliant, much smarter than her fighter pilot brother. Tala considered this. Why you fight, if smart sister studies life? It was a profound question from such a young being. Why did he fight? When his sister dedicated her life to understanding other species. I joined to protect people, Jax said slowly. To defend our colonies. But the longer this war continues, the more I wonder if we're just perpetuating the cycle of violence. Tala nodded sagely. Grandmother says same about protecting Vimara. But more death, not protection. She looked at the communicator. How much longer to fix? Another day, maybe 2. Jax estimated the power coupling is tricky, and I need to make sure the encryption protocols are intact. We don't want anyone else listening in. Tala stood suddenly, her head tilting as if listening to something Jax couldn't hear. Someone coming. Must hide you. She quickly led him to what appeared to be a closet built into the wall. But when Jack stepped inside, he discovered it was a small anteroom, possibly designed as a play space or reading nook. Taylor pressed her hand against a panel, and a hidden door slid shut just as the main chamber door opened. Through a tiny crack, Jax could see an imposing Vimaran male enter the room. His elaborate uniform marked him as a high-ranking official, and the way Tala stiffened in his presence suggested she was not fond of this visitor. "Princess Tala," the male said in the clicking musical language of the Vimara. Thanks to his days of lessons with Tala, Jax could now understand some basic phrases. "Your grandmother requests your presence at the evening council. Duke Raltek will be discussing the human prisoner's escape." Tala's response was delivered with remarkable poise for one so young. "I will prepare immediately. Commander Voss, please inform Her Majesty I shall join her shortly." The commander surveyed the room suspiciously. "Have you been using your translation device again? The Queen has expressed concern about your fascination with alien languages." "Knowledge of our enemies is a strategic advantage," Tala replied smoothly. "Grandmother herself has said this many times." The commander seemed unconvinced but didn't press further. "Be quick. The council will not wait, even for the heir." After he left, Tala reopened the hidden door. Her expression was grave. "Council dangerous. Duke Raltek wants find you, wants war with humans." "Do you think he was behind the fire?" Jax asked. Tala nodded, almost certain. "Wants grandmother look weak, take throne himself." The implications were clear. If Duke Raltek succeeded in his power grab, the conflict between Vimara and Earth would escalate dramatically. The current queen, for all her hatred of humans, at least maintained some restraint in her military campaigns. Raltek, based on Tala's description, would show no such moderation. "You need to go to the council," Jack said. "Don't give them any reason to suspect you're hiding me." Tala hesitated. "We'll continue fixed communicator. When return, we make plan." After she left, Jax returned to the damaged device with renewed urgency. The political situation was deteriorating faster than he had anticipated. If he couldn't establish contact with Earth Alliance forces soon, he might find himself caught in the crossfire of a Vimaran civil war. Or worse, be the catalyst for an even deadlier phase of the interspecies conflict. As he worked, Jax's thoughts kept returning to Tala. She was risking everything, her position, possibly even her life, to help an enemy combatant. Her compassion and wisdom belied her youth. If more leaders on both sides shared her perspective, perhaps this war could finally end. Hours later, Taylor returned, her face drawn with worry. "Bad news," she said without preamble. "Duke Raltek convinced Council you stole important secrets before escape. Grandmother ordered full search of Palace ship." "How long do we have?" Jax asked, setting aside the nearly repaired communicator. "A guard search level by level, reach royal quarters by morning." She sat heavily on her sleeping platform. "Duke said I too young to be heir. Said need strong leader who understands threat of humans." Jax understood the subtext immediately. "He's positioning himself to replace you in the line of succession." Tala nodded miserably. Grandmother listened. She... changing. More angry since fire. She looked up at Jax, her large eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I show you something, but must promise keep secret." "I promise," Jax said, intrigued. Tala moved to what appeared to be a decorative panel on the wall. She pressed her palm against it, and the panel slid aside to reveal a hidden compartment. From within, she withdrew a small crystalline object that pulsed with an inner light. "A memory stone," she explained, holding it reverently. "From my mother, before she... gone." Jax understood her hesitation. Taylor had never mentioned her parents before, and he had assumed, given her close relationship with the Queen, that they must be deceased or otherwise absent. "Your mother gave you this?" he asked gently. Tala nodded. "Mother not like grandmother. She believed peace possible. Duke Raltek arranged accident for her ship." Her voice hardened with a certainty that chilled Jax. "No proof, but I know. Grandmother too blind to see." She held out the crystal. "Touch. We'll show you." Cautiously, Jax extended his hand. When his fingers made contact with the smooth surface, his mind was suddenly flooded with images. A beautiful Vimaran female with Tala's same pearlescent skin, speaking passionately before what appeared to be a council, secret meetings with other species, including humans, and finally, a devastating explosion as a ship disintegrated against the backdrop of stars. Jax pulled his hand away, gasping. Those were your mother's memories?" "Yes, Vimara can store memories in crystals, passed down through generations." Tyla carefully returned the crystal to its hiding place. "Mother worked for peace. Now I continue." The revelation added layers of complexity to Jax's understanding of Vimaran politics. Tala wasn't just acting out of childish idealism. She was continuing her mother's dangerous work, navigating the treacherous waters of royal intrigue with stakes higher than Jax had imagined. "The communicator's almost fixed," he told her. "Once it's working, I can contact my people, but then what? I can't stay hidden here forever, and you'll be in danger if they discover you've been helping me." Tala's expression became determined. "When communicator works, we go to technical section, send message. Then I help you reach escape pods." "They'll know it was you," Jax protested. "Your grandmother will—" "Grandmother must see truth," Taylor interrupted. "About Duke, about humans, about war." She touched the wall where the memory crystal was hidden. "Mother died for truth. I not afraid." Jax marveled at her courage. This child was willing to risk everything for principles that most adults struggled to uphold. Whether it was naivety or genuine nobility of spirit, he couldn't say. But he found himself inspired by her conviction. "All right," he agreed. "Once the communicator is operational, we'll make our move. But promise me you'll be careful. Your mother would want you to survive to continue her work." Tala smiled sadly. "We'll be careful. Now must prepare for guards. They search rooms soon, even royal quarters." She quickly showed Jax a more secure hiding place, a maintenance shaft accessible through her bathing chamber that connected to the environmental control systems of the palace ship. It would be uncomfortable, but it would allow him to evade detection during the search. As Jax settled into the cramped space with the communicator and some emergency rations, Taylor whispered a final instruction. "Work fast. Tomorrow night, we act." The maintenance shaft was barely large enough for Jax to sit upright, and the constant hum of environmental systems made concentration difficult. Nevertheless, he focused on the final repairs to the communicator, carefully aligning the power coupling and resetting the encryption algorithms. Through a small ventilation grate, he could hear the guards when they eventually searched Tala's quarters. The young princess played her role perfectly, responding to their questions with the appropriate mixture of royal indignation and childish curiosity. The search was thorough but respectful. Even Duke Raltek's influence apparently didn't extend to treating the heir to the throne with anything less than deference. After they left, Taylor didn't immediately retrieve Jax. Hours passed, and he began to worry that something had gone wrong. Had she been caught? Was she being questioned? Or had she simply been unable to find an opportunity to safely open his hiding place? The communicator finally powered up, its display glowing softly in the darkness of the shaft. Jax quickly ran a diagnostic. The unit was functioning but at reduced capacity. Its range would be limited, and the connection would be unstable. He would need to be much closer to a transmission array to send a clear signal to Earth Alliance forces. Just as he was contemplating his next move, the panel concealing his hiding place slid open. Tala stood there, looking tired but determined. The guard's gone. Duke, suspicious, asked many questions about my activities. She helped Jax out of the cramped space. Communicator works? Jax showed her the functioning device. It works, but we'll need to access a more powerful transmission system to reach my people. Is there a communications center we can access? Taylor considered this. Main communications heavily guarded, but technical section has auxiliary array for emergency use. She pointed to the communicator. Can connect there? If I can directly interface with the array, yes. Jack stretched his stiff muscles. How do we get there without being seen? Service corridors, used by maintenance drones, narrow but possible. She glanced at a timepiece on her wrist. Night cycle begins soon, fewer guards then. As they waited for the optimal time to move, Tala shared more about her mother and her vision for Vimaran society. Princess Lyravi had believed that the Vimaran Empire's aggressive expansion was unsustainable, both militarily and culturally. She had advocated for diplomatic relations with other species, particularly humans, whose adaptability and creativity she admired. Her mother said humans and Vimara complementary. Taylor explained, your adaptability, our stability, together, stronger than separate. She sounds like she was very wise, Jack said, and very brave to promote such views in your grandmother's court. She was... Taylor's expression clouded. Duke Ral Tech called her traitor, said humans would destroy Vimara culture with infiltration, said only conquest keep us safe. It was a familiar rhetoric, the fear of cultural contamination used to justify aggression and isolation. Jax had heard similar arguments from hardliners within the Earth Alliance who opposed any diplomatic overtures to the Vimara. Your mother was right, Jax said quietly. This war is destroying both our peoples. There has to be another way forward. Tala checked her timepiece again. Time to go. Follow close. Speak no words. She led him through a concealed panel in her bathroom that opened into a narrow maintenance corridor. Unlike the polished, ornate passages of the royal quarters, these service tunnels were utilitarian and dimly lit. Occasionally they would encounter maintenance drones, insect-like robots that skittered along the walls performing repair tasks, but no organic beings. Taylor navigated the labyrinthine passages with confidence, suggesting she had used these routes before. Perhaps, Jax realized, this wasn't the first time she had moved through the palace ship unobserved. How many other secrets did this remarkable child keep? After nearly an hour of careful progress, they reached a junction where the maintenance corridor intersected with a more conventional passage. Tala held up a hand for Jax to stop, then peered carefully around the corner. She turned back to him and whispered, "Guard post ahead. 2 soldiers. Must distract." Before Jax could suggest a plan, Tala removed a small device from her pocket, some kind of remote control. She aimed it down the corridor in the opposite direction from their destination and pressed a sequence of buttons. Moments later, an alarm sounded from far down the passage. The guards immediately responded, drawing weapons and moving to investigate the disturbance. A maintenance alert, Taylor explained with a mischievous smile. Low priority, but must check. Come, quickly. They slipped past the vacated guard post and continued toward the technical section. Jax was increasingly impressed by Tala's resourcefulness and preparation. This was clearly not an improvised escape plan, but something she had been contemplating for some time. The technical section, when they finally reached it, was a vast chamber filled with humming equipment and glowing display screens. Unlike the more populated areas of the palace ship, this space was largely automated, with only a few technicians visible at monitoring stations. Tala led Jax to a secluded corner where a communications array stood. It was smaller than the main system would be, but still far more powerful than the portable communicator he'd repaired. "I can connect here," she whispered. "Technicians change shift soon. Brief window to transmit." Jax quickly assessed the alien technology. Despite the differences in design philosophy, the basic principles of communication systems remained universal. He could identify the input ports, power regulators, and transmission matrices. "I need about 5 minutes to interface with the system and send a secure message," he told Tala. "Can you keep watch?" She nodded and moved to a position where she could observe the main entrance while remaining hidden from view. Jax carefully connected his repaired communicator to the V-Moran array, using adapter protocols he'd learned during his military training. The Earth Alliance had anticipated the need to utilize or compromise enemy communication systems, and all pilots received basic instruction in such techniques. As the system synchronized, Jax composed a concise message to Major Mira Jensen. "Emira, it's Jax. Alive on V-Moran Palace ship. Situation complex, internal power struggle. Potential peace faction exists. Young heir Tala seeks diplomatic solution. Transmitting coordinates. Respond on this frequency with extraction options. Critical. No aggressive approach. Diplomatic channel possible." He added the ship's current coordinates, based on stellar positioning data displayed on a nearby navigation screen, and set the message to transmit using the highest level encryption protocol available. Just as he initiated the transmission, Tala hissed a warning. "Someone comes!" Jax didn't have time to disconnect cleanly. He quickly severed the physical connection between his communicator and the V-Moran array, hoping the message had been sent completely before the link was broken. Tala gestured urgently toward a narrow space between two server units. They squeezed into the gap just as a technician entered their section of the room, apparently responding to an automated alert triggered by the unauthorized transmission. The technician, a middle-aged V-Moran male with the distinctive markings of a senior technical specialist, examined the communications array with evident confusion. He tapped several controls, studied the readings, then activated his communicator. "Security. This is Technical Officer Venzar. Possible anomaly in auxiliary communications array. Unauthorized transmission detected. Origin unclear. Requesting security scan." Jax felt Tala tense beside him. Discovery now would be catastrophic, not just for him, but for her as well. A member of the royal family caught helping a human prisoner would face consequences far beyond Jax's imagination. The technician continued his inspection, moving closer to their hiding place. Jax held his breath, calculating whether he could overpower the V-Moran without raising an alarm. It would be risky. V-Morans were naturally stronger than humans. And even if he succeeded, the unconscious technician would eventually be found. Before he could act, the facility's main alarm system activated, blaring at a painful volume. The technician immediately abandoned his investigation and rushed toward the central monitoring station, joining his colleagues who were responding to what appeared to be a much more significant emergency. Tala tugged at Jax's sleeve. "Diversion worked," she whispered, indicating her remote control device. "Set environmental alert in Royal Sector. High priority." "You're terrifyingly good at this," Jax murmured, impressed despite the danger of their situation. "Did the transmission complete, do you think?" "Unknown, but must move now. Guards will secure all sections soon." They slipped out of their hiding place and retreated the way they had come, moving as quickly as stealth would allow. The technical section was now in chaos, with personnel responding to the false environmental emergency, giving them cover for their escape. Once back in the relative safety of the maintenance corridors, Jax asked the question that had been building in his mind. What happens now? If my message got through, my people will be looking for a way to extract me. But what about you? Tyla's expression was solemn beyond her years. Must return to quarters before absence noticed. Tomorrow is ceremony of ascension, formal recognition as heir. All court attends. She hesitated. After ceremony, Duke Raltek planned something. Overheard guards talking, something about final solution to human problem. That doesn't sound good, Jax said grimly. Do you think he knows about me? About us working together? Not certain, but Duke very dangerous. Wants war expanded, wants grandmother's throne. She looked at Jax with determination. Must stop him. Show grandmother truth before too late. Jax considered their limited options. If my people received my transmission, they might attempt contact within the next 12 hours. But without access to the communications array, I won't be able to receive their response. I can access, Taylor said. During preparation for ceremony, less guards watching then. She touched the translation device at her temple thoughtfully. If humans respond, what they say, they'll either propose an extraction plan or request more information. Jax explained. Major Jensen will want to understand the political situation before committing resources. The Earth Alliance has been seeking a diplomatic opening for months. Tala nodded. Then must give information. Show humans Vimara not all want war. She paused, then added with childlike certainty. Show grandmother humans not all enemies. The enormity of what she was suggesting struck Jax fully. This wasn't just about his escape anymore. Taylor was proposing nothing less than a dramatic intervention in Vimaran politics. Using him, a human prisoner of war, to challenge the xenophobic policies that had defined her grandmother's reign. That's incredibly dangerous, Tala, he said gently. Your grandmother has spent decades viewing humans as enemies. One conversation won't change that. Not just conversation, Taylor insisted. Demonstration. Show humans saved Vimaran child, not hurt. Show Duke Raltek real enemy, not humans. Her eyes gleamed with the absolute confidence of youth. Grandmother loves me. Will listen when sees truth. Jax wasn't convinced, but he recognized the same determination that had led this extraordinary child to rescue him from his cell during the fire. She believed in her plan with the unshakable faith of someone who had not yet learned that adults, especially powerful ones with entrenched views, rarely change their minds when presented with inconvenient truths. Yet what alternative did they have? If Duke Raltek was indeed planning some dramatic escalation of the conflict, waiting for an extraction that might never come was not an option. All right, he said finally. We'll try it your way, but promise me you'll be careful. If things go wrong, your first priority is your own safety. I've survived this long. I'll find another way out if necessary. Tala smiled, that same genuine expression that had first given him hope in his burning cell. We'll be careful, but plan will work. You see, they parted ways at the entrance to the royal quarters. Taylor returning to her chambers while Jax retreated to the maintenance shaft that had become his temporary refuge. As he settled into the cramped space, he wondered if his message had reached Mira and what her response would be. Would she understand the delicate political situation he'd described? Would Earth Alliance leadership be willing to pursue a diplomatic approach when military action had been their default response for so long? More immediately, he worried about Tala. The young princess was placing herself in tremendous danger for the sake of peace between their species. If her plan failed, the consequences for her would be severe. Even if her royal status protected her from formal punishment, she would lose the trust of her grandmother and potentially her position as heir. Yet despite these concerns, Jax found himself hoping that Tala's optimistic vision might prevail. Perhaps the simplicity of her approach, demonstrating through direct experience that the enemy was not a monolithic entity of evil, could succeed where years of formal diplomacy had failed. With these thoughts circling in his mind, Jax finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, his dreams filled with images of burning cells, smiling alien children, and the vast star-filled void that separated his world from theirs. The next day arrived with a flurry of activity in the royal quarters, even from his hiding place. Jax could hear the increased movement and voices as preparations for the ceremony of ascension progressed. Tala had explained that this ritual, while primarily symbolic since she had been the designated heir since birth, represented a formal acknowledgement of her status and the beginning of her official training in the arts of governance. Under normal circumstances, it would be a joyous occasion, celebrated throughout the Vimaran Empire. But with Duke Raltek's machinations and the ongoing search for an escaped human prisoner, the atmosphere seemed tense rather than festive. It was mid-morning when Tala finally appeared at his hiding place, looking resplendent in ceremonial attire that enhanced her natural pearlescence with subtle iridescent patterns. Despite the formal clothing, her expression was serious. "I checked communications," she said without preamble. "Response from your people came. Major Jensen sent coordinates for rendezvous. Small ship will wait at coordinates for 26 hours. She handed him a data crystal. "All details here. Can view on my personal terminal." Jax followed her back to her chambers, where she activated a secure viewer. The message from Mira was brief but clear. Jax, message received. Diplomatic channel authorized at highest level. Scout vessel Perseverance will hold position at attached coordinates for 26 hours. Minimal crew, no weapon systems active. Approach with caution. Confirm peaceful intent of Vimaran contacts before proceeding. Jensen out. Relief washed over Jax. Mira had understood the sensitivity of the situation and had secured authorization for a diplomatic approach rather than a military extraction. It was more than he had dared hope for. "This is excellent news," he told Tala. "My people are willing to open diplomatic channels. If we can get to these coordinates, there's a real chance for meaningful dialogue." Tala studied the star chart showing the rendezvous point. "Location in neutral space. Good choice. But Palace ship not scheduled to pass near there." She frowned in concentration. "Need change course without suspicion." "Is that possible?" Jax asked. "Perhaps after ceremony. I have right to request educational journey, tradition for new confirmed heir." Her eyes lit up with inspiration. "Could request visit to Elysia Moon. Course adjustment would bring us near coordinates." It was a clever solution, leveraging Vimaran tradition to create an opportunity without raising alarms. But there remained the question of Duke Raltek's mysterious plans and the ongoing search for Jax himself. "What about the Duke?" Jax asked. "You said he was planning something for after the ceremony." Tala's expression darkened. "Still unknown, but overheard more guards. Something about demonstration for grandmother. Show true nature of humans." She looked at Jax with concern. "Think he knows about you? About us?" The implication was disturbing. If Raltek had somehow discovered their collaboration, he might use it to discredit Tala and further his own agenda. The timing, planning his demonstration immediately after the ceremony that would formally confirm Tala's status, suggested a deliberate attempt to undermine her position. "We need to move up our timeline," Jax decided. "If he's planning to expose you at the ceremony, we need to act first." Tala nodded in agreement. "Ceremony in 4 hours. Grandmother will be in Great Hall, preparing. Most guards there too. She activated a holographic display showing the palace ship's layout. Could reach her private chambers now. Speak without others present. It was risky, approaching the queen directly without the protection of a public setting. But if they waited until the ceremony, they would be playing into Raltek's hands, whatever his specific plans might be. All right, Jax said, making his decision. Let's do it. We'll go to your grandmother's chambers and tell her everything about the Duke's treachery, about your mother's vision for peace, about the Earth Alliance's willingness to open diplomatic channels. Tala took a deep breath, her young shoulders squaring with resolve. We'll be dangerous, grandmother. Not always reasonable about humans. I know, Jax said gently. But you were right before. Seeing a human who has protected her granddaughter rather than harmed her might change her perspective. Sometimes people need direct experience to overcome their prejudices. Tala smiled at that. Like me. Never met human before you. Only heard stories of war. And yet you saved me, Jax pointed out. You were willing to look past what you'd been taught to see for yourself. Because curious, Tala admitted. Wanted to know if stories true. She looked at him with that disarming directness children sometimes possess. Found stories wrong. Humans, not monsters. Just people. Different but same. It was a profound observation from one so young, and it reinforced Jax's belief that their desperate plan might actually work. If a child could see past years of cultural programming to recognize shared humanity, or vimeranity as it were, perhaps even the Queen might be capable of such a shift. We should go, Tala said, checking her timepiece. Preparation rituals begin soon. Grandmother alone now. They made their way through the royal quarters using Tala's knowledge of the palace ship's less traveled passages. The security presence was indeed lighter than usual, with most guards assigned to the great hall where the ceremony would take place, as they approached the Queen's private chambers. However, they encountered an unexpected obstacle. Commander Voss, the same officer who had searched Tala's quarters, standing guard outside the Queen's door. Tala whispered to Jax to remain hidden, then stepped forward confidently. Commander Voss. She greeted him formally. I seek audience with my grandmother before the ceremony. The commander bowed respectfully but did not move from his position. Forgive me, Princess, but Her Majesty has given explicit instructions not to be disturbed. The pre-ceremonial meditation is sacred. Tala's expression didn't waver. The matter is urgent and concerns the security of the throne itself. Duke Raltek plans treachery. This caught the commander's attention. He studied Tala carefully, seeming to weigh her youth against the seriousness of her accusation. These are grave words. Princess, do you have evidence of this alleged treachery? Yes, Tala said firmly. Evidence my mother collected before her death. Evidence that the Duke orchestrated her assassination and now plots against the Queen herself. Commander Voss's posture shifted subtly. Jax, watching from concealment, sensed a change in the officer's demeanor, not dismissal, but cautious interest. Princess Lyravi's death was ruled an accident, the commander said carefully. A fabrication, Tala countered. One my grandmother accepted because the truth was too painful. But I have proof that must be presented before the ceremony, before the Duke can act. After a moment of consideration, Commander Voss stepped aside. I will announce you, but I warn you, Princess, if these accusations prove false or exaggerated, even your position cannot protect you from the Queen's displeasure. I understand, Tala said solemnly. The commander activated the chamber's communication system and announced Tala's presence. After a brief pause, during which Jax held his breath in their hiding place, the massive doors to the Queen's chambers slid open. Taylor turned briefly toward Jax's position and made a subtle gesture. Wait. Then she entered the Queen's chambers alone, the doors closing behind her. Jax remained hidden, his mind racing. This wasn't the plan they had discussed. Taylor was supposed to bring him with her, to show her grandmother directly that a human had protected rather than harmed her. Now she was facing the Queen alone, armed only with accusations against a powerful court figure. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Jax considered his options. If Taylor's audience went poorly, he might need to attempt escape on his own. The coordinates from Mira were stored in his communicator now. If he could reach an escape pod, he might still make the rendezvous. But abandoning Tala felt wrong after everything she had risked for him. She had saved his life multiple times and had shown remarkable courage in pursuing her mother's vision of peace. Could he really leave her to face the consequences of their plan alone? Before he could resolve this internal debate, the chamber doors opened again. Commander Voss stepped out, his expression unreadable. "You can emerge from hiding, human," he said, looking directly at Jax's position. "The princess has told Her Majesty everything, including your presence. You are summoned." Jax hesitated, then stepped out from his concealment. There was no point in pretending now. "How did you know I was there?" he asked. The commander's mouth twitched in what might have been the Vemeran equivalent of a sardonic smile. "The princess is clever, but she is still young. I have been watching her more closely than she realized, ever since she began asking questions about her mother's death." This revelation sent a chill through Jax. "Are you working with Duke Raltek?" "I serve the throne," Commander Voss replied cryptically. "Now come. Her Majesty does not like to be kept waiting, with no real choice." Jax followed the commander into the Queen's chambers. The space was vast and dominated by angular architecture that seemed to draw the eye upward toward a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the stars outside. The lighting was subdued, creating pools of shadow and illumination that gave the chamber a theatrical quality. At the center of the room, seated on a raised platform rather than a conventional throne, was Queen Zarl-Vey. Even sitting, she was imposing, taller than most Vemeran females, with skin that had the matte gray quality of weathered stone rather than the pearlescence of her granddaughter. Her eyes, large and entirely black without visible pupils, fixed on Jax with undisguised hostility. Tala stood before her grandmother, her small form seeming even more diminutive in the Queen's presence. She turned as Jax entered, her expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Approach, human," the Queen commanded in perfect, unaccented English. Her voice was deeper than Jax had expected, with a resonant quality that seemed to bypass his ears and vibrate directly in his chest. Jax moved forward until he stood beside Tala. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns etched into the Queen's skin, symbols of rank and accomplishment that covered her exposed arms and face like living tattoos. "My granddaughter has told me an interesting story," the Queen said, her tone dangerously neutral. "She claims you are not only innocent of the crimes attributed to you by Duke Raltek, but that you have protected her from harm. She further claims that the Duke himself is responsible for the fire that damaged my palace ship, for the death of my daughter, and for attempting to escalate the conflict with your species beyond what I have authorized." Jax swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, everything the princess has told you is true. I have no wish to harm her or any Vemeran who seeks peace. My only desire is to help end a conflict that has cost too many lives on both sides." The Queen's expression remained impassive. Pretty words from a prisoner seeking freedom. She turned to Tala. "And you, child? You believe this human's protestations of peace? You would risk the security of our empire on the word of an enemy combatant?" Not just his word. Grandmother, Taylor said, her voice steady despite the intimidating setting. My own observations. The humans have sent a diplomatic vessel. They seek dialogue, not conquest. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Show me this evidence you claim to have regarding the Duke's treachery. Tyler produced the memory crystal from her mother, the same one she had shown Jax. Mother recorded everything. Her meetings with the Duke, his threats, his plans to remove you when the time was right. The Queen stared at the crystal but made no move to take it. Memory crystals can be manipulated, child. You know this. Not by me, Taylor insisted. I lack the skill, and examine it yourself. You will see the truth. For a long moment, the Queen remained motionless. Then, with a gesture that seemed to cause her physical pain, she extended her hand for the crystal. When her fingers closed around it, she closed her eyes. Jax knew from Tala's explanation that she was accessing the stored memories directly, experiencing them as if they were her own. The Queen's face contorted with a series of emotions: disbelief, anger, grief. When she finally opened her eyes, they shimmered with moisture. Lyra, she whispered, using the familiar form of her daughter's name. My Lyra spoke truth, and I refused to hear. Tala stepped closer to her grandmother, placing a small hand on the Queen's arm. Mother tried to show you another path, a better path, not conquest but cooperation. The Queen's gaze shifted to Jax, studying him with new intensity. And you, human, you had opportunity to escape, to harm us. Instead, you protected my granddaughter. She saved my life, Jax said simply, and I owed her the same courtesy. Courtesy, the Queen repeated, as if the concept were foreign to her. Is that what your species calls honor? We have many words for it, Jax replied. Honor, decency, humanity. At its core, it's the recognition that all sentient beings deserve respect and compassion. The Queen was silent for a moment, then stood, her full height making Jax feel small despite his own considerable stature. Commander Voss, she said, not taking her eyes from Jax. Summon the Royal Guard. Duke Raltek is to be arrested immediately on charges of treason and regicide. The commander bowed deeply. It will be done, Your Majesty. As he turned to leave, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the chamber. Red emergency lighting activated, bathing the space in a bloody glow. What is happening? The Queen demanded. Commander Voss activated a communication panel. Report! A panicked voice responded. The Duke has initiated some kind of override protocol. He's locked down the Great Hall and is addressing the assembled court. He claims the Queen has been compromised by human infiltrators and that Princess Tala is a traitor to her species. The Queen's expression hardened into something terrifying. It seems the Duke has decided to accelerate his plans. Commander, secure this chamber. The princess and the human remain under my personal protection. Your Majesty, Voss said hesitantly. The Duke has considerable support among the younger officers. If he has indeed turned them against you, then we will deal with their treachery as well. The Queen interrupted. She turned to Tala. Child, the time for diplomacy has passed. We must act decisively. Tala looked stricken. But grandmother, violence will only strengthen the Duke's position. We must show the court the truth, as you have seen it. The Queen considered this, then nodded slowly. Wisdom from one so young. Very well. She addressed Commander Voss again. Prepare a direct transmission to the Great Hall. I will address the court myself. The Duke may have blocked communications, Voss warned. He cannot block the royal override, the Queen said with grim confidence. Not even he would dare tamper with that protocol. As Commander Voss made the necessary arrangements, the Queen turned back to Jax and Tala. This human vessel your message spoke of, where is it now? Tala showed her the coordinates on a holographic display. Here, in neutral space, waiting for contact. The Queen studied the location. That is within range of our auxiliary craft, and if necessary, you could reach it. Jax was startled by the implication. Your Majesty, are you suggesting? I am ensuring options remain open, the Queen said curtly. My first duty is to the security of my throne and the safety of my heir. If Raltek's treachery has spread further than we know, alternative measures may be required. Before Jax could respond, Commander Voss announced, Transmission ready, Your Majesty. You may address the court whenever you wish. The Queen stepped onto a small platform that illuminated as she did so. A holographic projection of her image would now be appearing in the Great Hall, visible to all the assembled dignitaries and officers. Loyal subjects of the Vimaran Empire, she began, her voice ringing with authority. Grave accusations have been made this day, accusations that strike at the very heart of our civilization. Duke Raltek claims that I, your Queen, have been compromised, that my judgment has been clouded by foreign influence. She paused, her gaze sweeping across what would be the assembled court in the Great Hall. These claims are not merely false. They are a smokescreen designed to hide the Duke's own treachery. I have evidence, recorded by my daughter Princess Lyravi before her death, that proves beyond doubt that the Duke orchestrated her assassination and has been plotting to seize the throne. Murmurs could be heard through the transmission, the court reacting to this shocking accusation. Furthermore, the Queen continued, the Duke has deliberately sabotaged peace initiatives that might have ended the costly conflict with the humans. He has manipulated information, fabricated threats, and now attempts to use fear of the other to advance his own ambitions. Her voice hardened. I will not allow it. As your Queen, I command all loyal subjects to arrest Duke Raltek immediately. He will stand trial for his crimes, and justice will be served. For a moment, there was silence. Then a new voice entered the transmission, smooth, cultured, with the practiced cadence of a skilled orator. My beloved Queen, Duke Raltek said, his tone dripping with false concern. Your words only confirm my fears. The human influence has clearly affected your judgment more severely than I anticipated. The holographic display split, now showing both the Queen in her chambers and the Duke in the Great Hall. Raltek was tall even for a Vimaran, with elaborate facial markings that emphasized his aristocratic lineage. He stood before the assembled court with the confidence of someone who believed victory was already his. Members of the court, he continued, consider the evidence before you. Our Queen, who has led us wisely for so long, now suddenly embraces the very species that has resisted our rightful expansion. She accuses me, her most loyal servant, of treachery, based on supposed evidence that conveniently appears just as we are on the verge of a decisive victory over the humans. He spread his arms in a gesture of appeal. Is it not more likely that human agents have somehow influenced Her Majesty? Perhaps through technology, perhaps through the manipulation of the young princess, who has always shown an unhealthy curiosity about alien cultures. The Queen's expression remained impassive, but Jax could see fury building behind her eyes. You dare question my judgment, Raltek? You, who have hidden your ambitions behind a mask of loyalty. I question only the source of your sudden change of heart. The Duke replied smoothly. For decades, you have recognized the human threat for what it is. You have led our forces in containing their expansion, in protecting our way of life from contamination, and now, in the space of a few hours, you claim to have been mistaken all along? He turned back to the court. I ask you, loyal Vimarans, does this sound like the Queen we have served? Or does it sound like the words of someone whose mind has been tampered with? Jax could see the Duke's strategy clearly now. He wasn't directly challenging the Queen's authority. That would be too blatant, too easily rejected by traditionalists. Instead, he was positioning himself as the protector of the Queen's true legacy, suggesting that her current actions were the result of outside interference rather than genuine change of heart. It was clever, and from the uncertain murmurs audible through the transmission, it was working. The court was divided, unsure who to believe. Tala stepped forward suddenly, moving into the range of the holographic projector. Her small figure appeared beside her grandmother's in the transmission. Members of the court," she said, her voice clear despite her youth. "I am Princess Tala, heir to the throne. I stand with my grandmother, the Queen, and I bear witness to the Duke's treachery." The Duke's expression flickered briefly before settling into a paternal smile. "Ah, the young princess. Your loyalty to your grandmother is commendable, child. But you are too young to understand the complexities of—" "I understand enough," Tala interrupted, a breach of protocol that caused gasps among the court. "I understand that you arranged my mother's death because she sought peace. I understand that you orchestrated the fire in the palace ship to create fear and disorder. And I understand that you have lied to the Vimaran people about the nature of humanity." The Duke's smile hardened. "Bold accusations from one so young. Do you have evidence of these supposed crimes?" "Yes," Tala said firmly. "The same evidence my grandmother has seen. My mother's own recorded memories of your threats, your plots, your admission of guilt." "The fabrications," the Duke dismissed. "Memory crystals can be manipulated, as any educated Vimaran knows." "Then let the court examine them," Tala challenged. "Let the truth be determined by independent analysis." The Duke hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the directness of her approach. In that moment of uncertainty, Tala pressed her advantage. "But there is more immediate evidence of your deception," she continued. "You claim humans are universally hostile, incapable of peaceful coexistence with our kind. Yet I have direct experience that proves otherwise." She turned, gesturing toward Jax, who stood just outside the projection field. "This human was captured in battle, imprisoned in our cells. When the fire you started threatened my life, he saved me at risk to himself. He has had multiple opportunities to escape, to harm us, yet he has chosen cooperation and protection instead." The Duke's composed facade cracked slightly. "You brought a human prisoner into the Queen's presence? This is treason. Guards, seize the princess and the human infiltrator." But the command lacked authority. The guards in the Great Hall looked uncertainly between the Duke and the holographic images of their Queen and the princess. The Queen spoke again, her voice resonating with cold fury. "Duke Raltek, you have overplayed your hand. No true Vimaran would order the arrest of the royal heir without the monarch's command. Your actions reveal your true intentions." She stepped closer to the projection, her imposing presence seeming to fill the Great Hall despite being only a holographic image. "I have ruled the Vimaran Empire for 67 cycles. I have led our people through war and peace, scarcity and abundance. My judgment has been tested and proven time and again." Her voice lowered, becoming more intimate yet somehow more commanding. "I admit freely that I have hated the humans. I have seen them as enemies, as threats to our way of life. But I have always placed the true welfare of our people above all else, including my own prejudices." She gestured to Tala. "My granddaughter has shown me a truth I was unwilling to see, that in my hatred, I have been blind to opportunities for peace, for growth, for a future beyond endless conflict. The human prisoner she sheltered could have harmed her at any time. Instead, he protected her. He honored the same values we claim to uphold: loyalty, courage, compassion. The Queen's gaze swept across the court. Which of you would not reconsider your beliefs when presented with evidence that contradicts them? Which of you would cling to hatred when shown a path to peace? Is that the Vemoran way? To ignore truth in favor of comfortable prejudice? The court was silent now, captivated by the Queen's words. Even the Duke seemed momentarily at a loss for a counter-argument. Into this silence, Tala spoke again, her voice softer but no less clear. I ask permission to present the human prisoner, that the court may judge for themselves. The Queen nodded. Granted. Tala turned to Jax and gestured him forward. He stepped into the projection field, aware that he was now visible to the entire Vemoran court. He stood tall, meeting the virtual gazes of those who had been his enemies with neither defiance nor submission, simply the dignity of one sentient being addressing others. Members of the Vemoran court, he said, hoping his voice conveyed the sincerity he felt. I am Captain Jason Harper of the Earth Alliance. I was captured in battle defending my people, just as any of you would defend yours. I do not deny the conflict between our species, nor pretend that all humans seek peace. He paused, carefully choosing his next words. But I stand before you as proof that coexistence is possible. Princess Tala saved my life during the fire. I have since learned that she shares her mother's vision of a future where our species cooperate rather than fight. I believe that future is possible. Difficult, perhaps, but possible. The Duke finally recovered his composure. Pretty words from a prisoner seeking freedom, he said, unknowingly echoing the Queen's earlier skepticism. Would you have us believe that one human's convenient diplomacy outweighs years of conflict? The battles your kind has fought against us? The colonies you have established in territories we claimed? I would have you believe that people can change, Jax replied simply. That nations can change. That the path we've been on, both Vemarans and humans, leads only to mutual destruction. He gestured to Tala. Princess Tala showed me kindness when she had every reason to fear or hate me. She judged me by my actions, not by the history of our species. Is that not wisdom worthy of a future queen? The Duke scoffed. Sentimental nonsense. The princess is a child, easily swayed by an enemy's manipulation. This human is playing on her naivety too. He was interrupted by a sudden commotion in the Great Hall. Guards were entering, not the younger officers loyal to the Duke, but veterans of the Royal Guard, led by Commander Voss, who must have made his way there during the exchange. Duke Ral Tech, Commander Voss announced formally. By order of Queen Zarl V, you are under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit regicide, and the assassination of Princess Lyra V. Surrender peacefully. The Duke's expression contorted with rage. This is madness. The Queen has been compromised. I am protecting our empire. He reached for what appeared to be a weapon concealed in his ceremonial robes. Before he could draw it, several royal guards fired stun weapons. The Duke collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. The Duke will be confined and questioned, Commander Voss informed the court. All evidence will be presented publicly. Those who have supported his actions unwittingly will be granted clemency if they renew their loyalty to the throne. The Queen addressed the court one final time. This has been a dark day for our empire, but also one of revelation. I have ruled long enough to know that change is inevitable. The question is whether we direct that change or are consumed by it. She placed a hand on Tala's shoulder. My granddaughter has shown wisdom beyond her years. She has reminded me of what my daughter tried to teach, that true strength lies not in conquest but in adaptation, in growth, in the courage to reconsider even our most deeply held beliefs. Her gaze found Jax again. Captain Harper, you will remain under royal protection while we investigate the full extent of Duke Raltek's conspiracy. Princess Tala will serve as your liaison. When matters here are stabilized, we will open formal diplomatic channels with your Earth Alliance. Jax bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. The transmission ended, leaving the Queen's chambers in sudden silence. The crisis appeared to be over, at least for the moment. Duke Raltek was in custody. The court had been reminded of their loyalty to the throne, and the immediate threat of escalation had been averted. Yet Jax knew that this was only the beginning. Decades of conflict and mutual suspicion could not be erased by a single dramatic confrontation. The path to peace would be long and fraught with obstacles, both from Vimarans who shared the Duke's xenophobic views and from humans who distrusted any overture from their longtime enemies. Tala looked up at him, her expression a mixture of relief and uncertainty. Now what happens? The Queen, overhearing the question, answered before Jax could formulate a response. Now, child, we begin the difficult work of changing course. A warship cannot alter its trajectory instantly. It requires time, care, and the coordinated effort of many. She studied Jax with an expression he couldn't quite read. Captain Harper, your vessel awaits at the coordinates your people provided. You are free to join them, to return to your alliance and report what has transpired here. It was an unexpected offer. Jax had assumed he would remain on the palace ship as something between a guest and a hostage while diplomatic channels were established. Your Majesty, he said carefully, I would be more useful as a liaison between our peoples. If you're sincere about pursuing peace, my presence here could help facilitate understanding. The Queen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. A diplomatic answer. But I suspect your true reason has more to do with a certain promise you made to my granddaughter. Tala looked between them, confusion evident on her face. What promise? Jax smiled at her. I promised to protect you, remember? I can't very well do that if I'm on an Earth Alliance ship light years away. I can protect myself, Tala said with the dignified indignation only a child can muster. Then, more quietly, but I would prefer you stay. There is much more of our language to teach you. The Queen watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. Then, remarkably, her severe features relaxed into what might have been the Vimaran equivalent of a smile, not the threatening display of teeth used to intimidate enemies, but something gentler, more genuine. It seems my granddaughter has developed an attachment to you, Captain. That presents both opportunities and complications for our diplomatic efforts. She turned away, moving toward a large viewing window that displayed the stars beyond. I have ruled the Vimaran Empire for longer than you have been alive, human. I have made decisions that preserved our way of life, protected our territories, ensured our species' continued dominance in this sector of space. Her voice grew softer, more reflective. I have also made mistakes. I allowed grief over my daughter's death to blind me to the possibility that her vision might have merit. I trusted those who reinforced my existing beliefs rather than those who challenged them. She turned back to face them. I am too old to change entirely. Captain Harper, do not expect me to suddenly embrace your species or abandon the caution that has preserved my people. But I am not too proud to recognize when adaptation is necessary for survival. She gestured to Tala. My granddaughter represents our future. She will lead the Vimaran Empire when I am gone, and she will do so in a galaxy where isolation is no longer an option. If she believes cooperation with humans is possible, I will not stand in the way of that discovery. It was as close to a blessing as Jax could have hoped for. Not a wholehearted endorsement of peace, but an opening, a willingness to explore possibilities beyond the status quo of conflict. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said, bowing again. That's all anyone could ask, the chance to prove that another way is possible. The Queen nodded regally, then turned to Commander Voss, who had just returned from the Great Hall. "Prepare a communication to the human vessel. Inform them that Captain Harper has elected to remain as our guest and initial diplomatic liaison. Ensure they understand he does so voluntarily and will be permitted regular contact with his superiors." As the commander moved to carry out this order, the Queen addressed Tala. "The ceremony of ascension will proceed as planned, but delayed until tomorrow to allow for security assessments. You have proven today that you are indeed worthy of your position as heir." Tala straightened at this rare praise from her grandmother. "Thank you, grandmother. I will continue to serve our people with honor." "See that you do," the Queen replied, though her tone lacked its usual severity. "Now, show Captain Harper to more appropriate quarters. The royal guest chambers in the eastern wing should suffice." As they left the Queen's presence, Tala could barely contain her excitement. "It worked," she whispered once they were in the corridor. "Grandmother listened. She is changing." Jack smiled at her enthusiasm but offered a tempering perspective. "It's a beginning, Tala. Your grandmother has taken a first step toward reconsidering her views, but don't expect a complete transformation overnight. Change like this takes time, especially for someone who has held the same beliefs for decades." Tala nodded, sobering slightly. "I know, but never thought she would even consider peace with humans. Not after—" She trailed off. "After what?" Jax prompted gently. Tala hesitated, then explained. "Long ago, when Mother was small like me, humans killed grandmother's bonded mate, my grandfather, in battle near Earth Colony. His ship destroyed with all crew. Grandmother never forgave humans after that." The revelation added another layer to Jax's understanding of the Queen's hostility. It wasn't just political or strategic, it was deeply personal, rooted in grief and loss. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. "War brings tragedy to both sides, that's why ending it matters so much." Tala led him through the palace ship's ornate corridors, no longer needing to hide or use service passages. Guards they passed regarded Jax with uncertainty but made no move to interfere with someone under the princess's escort. The guest chambers, when they reached them, were spacious and elegant, designed with the same angular aesthetic that characterized Vimaran architecture but softened with comfortable furnishings and subtle lighting. "Much better than maintenance shaft," Tala observed with a grin. Jax laughed. "Definitely an upgrade from a prison cell, too." As Tala showed him how to operate the various amenities, a communication panel activated, indicating an incoming transmission. Tala operated the controls, and a holographic image of Major Mira Jensen appeared in the center of the room. "Hey, Jax," Mira exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. "We just received word from the Vimaran vessel. Are you really staying aboard voluntarily? Are you safe?" "I'm fine, Mira," Jax assured her. "Better than fine, actually, and we've had a breakthrough here, the beginning of what could be a real diplomatic opening." He explained the situation as concisely as possible. Duke Rahl Tech's attempted coup, the Queen's reconsideration of her position on humans, and his own decision to remain as an initial liaison. Mira listened with growing amazement. "The Defense Council is going to have a field day with this. Half of them won't believe it's possible, and the other half will be fighting over who gets credit for the diplomatic initiative." "Tell them it was all your idea," Jax suggested with a smile. "You did authorize the rendezvous, after all." "Very generous of you," Mira said dryly. "But seriously, Jax, this is a significant development. Are you sure you're making the right call by staying? We could extract you now." bring you home." Tala, who had been watching the exchange with fascination, stepped forward into Mira's view. "Earth person, he's safe here. I promise." Mira's expression softened as she regarded the young Vimaran. "You must be Princess Tala. Captain Harper has told me about you." "All good things, I hope," Tala said, her English remarkably improved through her daily practice with Jax. "The best," Mira confirmed. Then to Jax. "The Perseverance will maintain position for the next 24 hours as planned. After that, we'll establish a permanent diplomatic outpost in the neutral zone to facilitate ongoing communication. The Defense Council has authorized preliminary peace talks, pending confirmation from the Vimaran leadership. I'll relay that to the Queen," Jax promised. "I think she'll agree to formal discussions, though don't expect immediate results. We're talking about changing the course of a decades-long conflict." "Understood. Just be careful, Jax. Not everyone on either side wants this to succeed." After the transmission ended, Tala turned to Jax with a thoughtful expression. "Your friend worried about you. Emira's not just my friend. She was my commanding officer. She feels responsible for everyone who served under her. Like grandmother with Vimara people," Tala observed. Jax smiled at the comparison. "I suppose so. Yes. Leaders carry that burden, no matter their species." Tala nodded, then announced, "Must go prepare for ceremony tomorrow. We'll send food, proper clothes for human guest." At the doorway, she paused. "Thank you, Jax, for believing peace possible." After she left, Jax explored his new quarters more thoroughly. The space was clearly designed for high-ranking visitors, with amenities that catered to various species' needs. He found clothing that, while clearly designed for Vimaran physiology, could be adjusted to fit his human frame reasonably well. As promised, food arrived shortly, a mixture of Vimaran delicacies, labeled as potentially unsuitable for human consumption, and more Earth Alliance ration packs, presumably taken from captured vessels. Not the most appetizing meal, but far better than what he'd expected when he first woke up in a prison cell. That night, Jax slept in a real bed for the first time since his capture. His dreams were a jumble of burning cells, diplomatic chambers, and Tala's smile, that expression of innocent hope that had somehow changed the course of two civilizations. Morning arrived with an official summons. Commander Voss himself came to escort Jax to the ceremony of ascension, explaining that his presence had been requested by both the Queen and Princess Tala. "This is unprecedented," Voss admitted as they walked through corridors lined with curious Vimarans who stared openly at the human in their midst. "No outsider has ever attended an ascension ceremony. I'm honored by the invitation," Jax said diplomatically. "Though I suspect my presence is meant to send a message," Voss's expression remained neutral. "Indeed, the Queen is making a statement about the future direction of our empire. Not all will approve. Including you, Commander?" Voss considered the question carefully before answering. "I serve the throne. Captain Harper. My personal opinions are irrelevant. But since you ask, I was present when Princess Lyra first proposed peaceful relations with humans. I saw the wisdom in her arguments then, though I lacked the courage to support her publicly against Duke Raltek." He paused, his expression darkening. "That failure has haunted me. When I began to suspect the princess's death was not an accident, I positioned myself to watch over her daughter. I could not save Lyra, but I could protect Tala." The admission surprised Jax. "You've been protecting her all along." "As best I could without revealing my suspicions. Tala is special. She has her mother's vision and her grandmother's strength. The Vimaran Empire will need both in the challenging times ahead." They reached the Great Hall, which had been transformed since the previous day's confrontation. The space glowed with ceremonial lighting, and the assembled court, minus the now imprisoned Duke Rahl Tech and his closest allies, stood in formal arrangement around a central dais. Commander Voss led Jax to a position near the front, where he would be visible to all attendees. Another calculated statement from the Queen. A small ripple of murmurs passed through the assembly as the Vimarans noticed the human in their midst, but protocol kept any objections from being voiced aloud. The ceremony began with a procession of royal advisors, military leaders, and cultural representatives. Each approached the dais and placed a symbolic token upon it, representations of the various aspects of Vimaran society that the heir would one day govern. Finally, Queen Zarl V entered, her formal regalia even more impressive than the attire she had worn the previous day. The assembled court bowed deeply as she took her position on the dais. Tayla entered last, walking with practiced grace despite her youth. She wore ceremonial robes that echoed her grandmother's but in softer hues that emphasized her pearlescent skin. Around her neck hung a crystal pendant that Jax recognized as similar to the memory crystal she had shown him, perhaps her mother's, or another family heirloom. The ceremony itself was conducted in the formal Vimaran language, with ritualized exchanges between the Queen and her heir that Jax could only partially understand despite his lessons with Tala. The core meaning, however, was clear. Tala was formally accepting her responsibility as heir, committing herself to the welfare of the Vimaran people and the preservation of their culture. What surprised Jax was an apparent deviation from the traditional script. At one point, Tala spoke words that caused a stir among the assembly, with some Vimarans exchanging shocked glances while others nodded in approval. Later, when the formal portion of the ceremony had concluded and the court had moved to a reception area for the customary celebrations, Jax had an opportunity to ask Tala about this moment. "You caused quite a reaction with something you said," he noted. "Was that not part of the traditional ceremony?" Tala smiled mischievously. "Added my own words to oath. Traditional oath speaks of protecting Vimara from all enemies. I added promise to seek understanding with those different from us, to find strength in diversity rather than fear." "Bold," Jax commented. "How did your grandmother react?" "She knew I would do something like this. We discussed before ceremony. She not entirely approved, but allowed." Tala's expression grew more serious. "Small step, but important. Change must come from within traditions, not just against them." It was a sophisticated insight for one so young, reflecting a political maturity that continued to impress Jax. Tala understood instinctively what many revolutionaries failed to grasp, that lasting change required working within existing structures and values rather than simply opposing them. The reception continued, with various court members approaching to congratulate Tala and, with varying degrees of sincerity, acknowledge Jax's presence. Some seemed genuinely curious about the human, while others could barely conceal their discomfort or hostility. One elderly Vimaran female, introduced as Matriarch Sevnil of the Scientific Academy, engaged Jax in a particularly interesting conversation about human neurological structure compared to Vimaran. "Your species fascinates me," she admitted. "Such similar evolutionary outcomes despite completely different planetary origins. The universe tends toward certain solutions. It seems my sister would love to discuss this with you," Jax told her. "She's a xenobiologist specializing in convergent evolution. Perhaps she will visit one day," the matriarch said, with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. "When relations between our peoples are more established." As the reception progressed, Jax noticed the Queen watching him from across the chamber. Her expression remained inscrutable, but there was an intensity to her gaze that suggested she was evaluating him, and by extension, all of humanity, based on his conduct among her people. Commander Voss appeared at his side, speaking quietly. Her Majesty requests your presence in the diplomatic chamber after the reception concludes. The first official communication with your Earth Alliance leadership will take place there. Already? Jax was surprised by the speed of developments. The Queen does not hesitate once a course is chosen, Voss explained. And there are practical considerations as well. Duke Raltek's supporters, while currently subdued, may attempt to undermine these initiatives if given time to organize. The reception eventually wound down, and Jax was escorted to a chamber he hadn't seen before, smaller than the Great Hall but still impressive, with a large circular table at its center and viewing screens that displayed both the stars outside and various data displays. The Queen arrived shortly after, accompanied by Tala and several advisors who, Jax presumed, had been vetted for their loyalty and openness to the new diplomatic direction. Captain Harper, the Queen acknowledged him. We will now establish direct communication with your Earth Alliance leadership. What should we expect from this initial exchange? Jax considered carefully before answering. Caution, Your Majesty. Hope, but tempered with skepticism. The Defense Council will have questions about your intentions, about the stability of your government following yesterday's events, and about specific terms for any potential ceasefire. The Queen nodded. Reasonable concerns. I would ask the same in their position. She gestured to a Vimaran technician who activated the communication system. We will speak plainly and directly. No diplomatic obfuscation. That approach has failed both our peoples for too long. The communication link established, and a holographic projection appeared above the circular table. A panel of 5 Earth Alliance officials, including Admiral Helena Chen, the formidable head of the Defense Council, and Ambassador Thomas Reyes, the Alliance's chief diplomatic officer. Greetings from Earth Alliance, Ambassador Reyes began formally. We received this communication in the spirit of potential cooperation it represents. The Vimaran Empire acknowledges your greeting. The Queen responded with equal formality. I am Queen Zarlvi, ruler of all Vimara. With me is Princess Tala, heir to the throne, and Captain Jason Harper, who has agreed to serve as initial liaison between our peoples. Admiral Chen's gaze fixed on Jax. Captain Harper, your report on the situation has been received. Are you under any duress or constraint in your current role? None, Admiral, Jax assured her. I'm here voluntarily and am being treated as an honored guest. The Queen has demonstrated genuine interest in exploring peaceful alternatives to our conflict. The Admiral's expression remained skeptical, but she nodded acknowledgement. Ambassador Reyes took the lead again. Your Majesty, this overture comes after decades of hostility between our peoples. While we welcome the possibility of peace, we must ask what has prompted this change in stance. The Queen's response was surprisingly candid. Recent events have revealed deception within my own court. Certain elements led by Duke Raltek deliberately sabotaged previous peace initiatives and manipulated information to escalate the conflict. They have been removed from power. She paused, then added something that clearly cost her considerable pride. Additionally, I have been compelled to reconsider certain assumptions about your species based on new evidence. Tyla stepped forward. My grandmother refers to Captain Harper's actions. He protected me when he could have escaped or used me as hostage. Showed that humans can be honorable, even toward those they consider enemies. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her colleagues. A single individual's actions, however commendable, seem a thin basis for such a significant policy shift. It was catalyst, not sole reason, the Queen clarified. I have reviewed evidence my daughter collected before her death. Evidence that suggests our conflict has been prolonged by interests that benefit from continued warfare rather than any fundamental incompatibility between our species. This frank acknowledgement seemed to surprise the Earth Alliance representatives as much as it had surprised Jax when he first heard it. Ambassador Reyes leaned forward. Your Majesty, we appreciate your candor. The Earth Alliance has long sought diplomatic channels with the Vimaran Empire. What specific steps do you propose to move forward? The discussion that followed was detailed and pragmatic, establishing secure communication protocols, identifying neutral zones where representatives could meet in person, and outlining a framework for a temporary ceasefire while more comprehensive peace talks were arranged. Throughout the exchange, Jax observed Tala watching intently, occasionally whispering questions to Commander Voss, who stood nearby. She was treating this as an educational opportunity. Studying the diplomatic process she would one day lead as queen. After nearly 2 hours of discussion, the initial framework was established. The Earth Alliance would withdraw forces from contested border regions as a show of good faith, while the Vimaran Empire would halt all ongoing military operations against human colonies. A joint commission would be established to address territorial disputes, trade possibilities, and cultural exchange initiatives. As the communication concluded, Ambassador Reyes addressed Jax directly. Captain Harper, your unexpected role in these developments has been fortuitous. The Alliance formally recognizes your new position as liaison and will provide appropriate diplomatic credentials and support. Admiral Chen added with a hint of dry humor. This wasn't exactly what we had in mind when we sent you on that fighter patrol, Harper. But I suppose results are what matter. After the Earth Alliance representatives signed off, the Queen turned to Jax. Your leaders are cautious but practical. That is, promising. They want peace, Your Majesty, Jax assured her. They've wanted it for years but saw no opening for meaningful dialogue. And now such an opening exists, the Queen said, rising from her seat. Created, ironically, by those who most feared it, she glanced at Tala, and by those brave enough to see possibilities where others saw only threats. In the days that followed, Jax settled into his new role as liaison between the Vimaran Empire and Earth Alliance. It was a position that hadn't existed before and therefore came with few established protocols or precedents, which, he discovered, gave him considerable flexibility to shape the role according to the needs of the moment. Much of his time was spent facilitating communications between the two governments, translating not just language but cultural contexts and assumptions that might otherwise lead to misunderstandings. Tala assisted enthusiastically, her unique perspective as both a Vimaran royal and someone genuinely curious about human culture proving invaluable. A month into this new arrangement, as the palace ship orbited the verdant moon of Elysia for Tala's long-delayed educational journey, Jax received an unexpected message from the Queen requesting his presence in her private arboretum, a section of the palace ship dedicated to plants from various Vimaran territories. He found her tending to what appeared to be delicate blue flowers with luminescent stems, her formal regalia replaced by simpler attire appropriate for gardening. Your Majesty, Jax greeted her with the customary bow. You wanted to see me? The Queen continued her work for a moment before responding. These are Elysia blue star flowers. Difficult to cultivate off-planet. They require precise conditions, specific light spectra, carefully balanced nutrients, regular pruning. She finally looked up at him. Much like diplomacy between disparate species. Jax smiled at the metaphor. Both require patience and attention to detail. Indeed. The queen set aside her gardening tools and gestured for Jax to walk with her along a path that wound through various botanical displays. The preliminary reports from the Joint Commission are encouraging. Trade negotiations have begun in 3 sectors, and the ceasefire holds despite minor incidents. Progress is being made, Jax agreed. Though there's still resistance on both sides. There will always be resistance to change, the queen said dismissively. What matters is that the central path remains clear. She stopped before a small pond where creatures similar to the ones Jax had seen in Tala's quarters floated in luminescent gas. I have been reflecting on my daughter's work, the initiatives she proposed before her death. Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. Lyra V envisioned a comprehensive alliance between our peoples, not merely peaceful coexistence, but active cooperation. She believed our species complemented each other in ways that could lead to mutual advancement. Your granddaughter shares that vision, Jax observed. Yes, Tala is very much her mother's daughter. The queen studied the floating creatures for a moment before continuing. I have decided to establish a permanent diplomatic outpost on Elysia, a place where humans and Vimarans can meet, work, and learn from each other without the constraints of either government's direct oversight. Jax was surprised by the boldness of the proposal. That would be a significant step, Your Majesty. Too significant? The queen challenged, watching his reaction closely. Not at all, Jax assured her. It's exactly the kind of initiative that could accelerate understanding between our peoples. But it would require careful implementation to ensure security and productive exchange rather than tension. The queen seemed satisfied with his response. I want you to oversee this project, Captain Harper, with Tala as your Vimaran counterpart. I'm honored by your trust, Your Majesty, but I'm not a diplomat by training. Surely there are others more qualified. There are none more qualified, the queen interrupted firmly. You understand both our peoples. You have proven your commitment to peace, and most importantly, you have earned Tala's trust, and mine. The admission of trust from the once implacable queen left Jax momentarily speechless. When he found his voice again, he asked, when would this project begin? Immediately. The facilities already exist, a research station established during Lyra V's time but abandoned after her death. It requires only modernization and staffing. The queen turned to face him directly. Your Earth Alliance has already approved the concept in principle, pending final details. All that remains is your acceptance. Jax thought of the path that had brought him here. From fighter pilot to prisoner to diplomat. None of it had been planned, yet somehow each step had led to this moment, this opportunity to contribute to something truly meaningful. I accept, Your Majesty. I'll do everything in my power to make this initiative succeed. The queen nodded, satisfied. Good. Tala will be pleased. She has already begun planning educational programs for the outpost. A hint of amusement colored her voice. My granddaughter has ambitious ideas about cultural exchange. As they continued their walk through the arboretum, the queen shared more details about the planned outpost and her expectations for its development. Despite her continued formal manner, Jax could sense a fundamental shift in her attitude, not just toward him specifically, but toward the possibility of a future where Vimarans and humans work together rather than against each other. Later that day, when Jax shared the news with Tala during their regular language lesson, her excitement was unrestrained. Grandmother really said that about trust? She asked, eyes wide. She did, Jax confirmed. I was as surprised as you are. Tala beamed with pride. She changing, Jax, slowly but changing, never thought would see this day. Your mother would be proud of what you've accomplished, Jax told her gently. Tala touched the crystal pendant she always wore. the one Jax had noticed during the ascension ceremony. Mother's memory's here. Sometimes I talk to her, tell her what's happening, think she knows. Somehow, the simple statement, delivered with childlike certainty yet profound emotional depth, reminded Jax again of the remarkable being Tala was, part precocious child, part wise leader, carrying the legacy of her mother while forging her own path forward. I think she knows too, Jax said. And I think she's very proud of her daughter who smiled at an enemy and changed the course of history. Tala laughed, that same genuine expression of joy that had first given Jax hope in his burning cell. Not enemy anymore, friend now. Maybe one day when I queen and you important Earth person. We remember how all started with fire and smile. I look forward to that day. Jax said, realizing he truly meant it. Despite all the challenges ahead, all the resistance they would face from hardliners on both sides, all the cultural and biological differences that would need to be navigated, he genuinely believed that day would come, a future of cooperation rather than conflict, built not on grand diplomatic theories but on the simple, powerful truth that Tala had demonstrated. When we see each other as individuals rather than abstract enemies, everything can change, even a queen's hardened heart. 2 months later, Jax stood on the surface of Elysia, watching as the first joint research team, a mixture of Vimaran scientists and human specialists, explored the facilities of what was now officially designated as the Harmony Outpost. The name had been Tala's suggestion, symbolic of the future they hoped to build. The moon was as beautiful as Tala had described, with crystal-clear lakes where bioluminescent fish truly did seem to sing as they moved through the waters. Forests of tall, flexible vegetation swayed in the gentle breeze, their colors shifting subtly with the angle of light from the gas giant that dominated the sky. Tala stood beside him, proudly showing the human visitors various native species and explaining their ecological significance. She had become an effective ambassador in her own right, her natural curiosity and openness making her the perfect bridge between cultures. Captain Harper, a voice called from behind him. He turned to see Matriarch Sevneil approaching, accompanied by a human woman whose features were startlingly familiar. Eliza? Jack stared in disbelief at his sister. What are you doing here? Dr. Eliza Harper, xenobiologist and, as Jax had often claimed, the smarter Harper sibling, grinned at his surprise. Did you really think I'd miss the scientific opportunity of a lifetime? When the Earth Alliance started recruiting specialists for this project, I was first in line. She embraced him warmly, then stepped back to gesture at their surroundings. This place is incredible, Jax. The convergent evolution patterns alone will keep me busy for years. Matriarch Sevneil nodded in agreement. Dr. Harper's insights have already proven valuable. Her perspective on interspecies cellular communication is particularly intriguing. Tala approached, studying Eliza with undisguised interest. You Jax's sister? He talk about you often. Say you much smarter than him. Eliza laughed. Well, he's not wrong about that. She extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. It's an honor to meet you, Princess Tala. My brother has told me how instrumental you've been in making all this possible. Tala looked momentarily confused by the handshake but quickly adapted, taking Eliza's hand with careful precision. Not just me. Many people work for peace. Just needed spark, as the four of them toured the facility, discussing research priorities and cultural exchange programs. Jax found himself reflecting on the improbable journey that had brought them all here. A random act of compassion during a fire, a child's smile across enemy lines, a queen's reluctant reconsideration of long-held beliefs, seemingly small moments that had altered the trajectory of two civilizations. That evening, as Elysia's brief twilight painted the landscape in shades of purple and blue, Jax joined Tala on an observation platform overlooking one of the singing lakes. In the distance, human and Vimaran researchers worked side by side, their initial awkwardness gradually giving way to professional respect and cautious friendship. "Remember first day in cell?" Tala asked suddenly. "When thought would die in fire?" Vividly, Jax admitted. "It's not the sort of experience one forgets." He was scared, Tala confessed, not supposed to be in prison section, but curious about human prisoner. Then fire started, and thought maybe destiny brought me there. Jax had never heard this part of the story before. "You think it was destiny?" Tala considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "Maybe not destiny, but opportunity. Mother always said, look for chances to change path. They come in unexpected moments." She gestured toward the researchers working together in the distance. This one small moon in very big galaxy. But here, something new growing. Like Elysia blue star flowers grandmother tends, fragile but beautiful. Worth protecting. Worth fighting for, Jax agreed. Though not the kind of fighting I was trained for. Tala smiled at that. Different kind of courage, harder kind sometimes. As darkness fell and Elysia's natural bioluminescence began to illuminate the landscape, Jax reflected that Tala was right. The courage to reach across divisions, to question one's own assumptions, to pursue peace when war seemed easier. These required a different kind of strength than battle. He thought of Queen Zarl V, who had found that courage despite decades of grief and hatred, of Commander Voss, who had protected Tala while working within a system he questioned, of Tala herself, who had risked everything to save an enemy because she believed in the possibility of something better. And perhaps in his own small way, he had found that courage too, the warrior who became a bridge, the prisoner who became a diplomat, the enemy who became a friend, as the singing fish began their evening chorus, harmonizing in ways that defied Earth classification systems. Jax and Tala stood in comfortable silence, watching the first stars appear in Elysia's night sky. Above them, visible as a luminous point of light, the Vimaran Palace ship maintained its orbit, a symbol of the old order now cautiously embracing a new vision. "When I queen someday," Tala said quietly, "we'll remember this moment. First day of new path." "I'll remember it too," Jax promised. "And I'll tell my children, and my children's children, about the alien princess who smiled when everyone else frowned, and changed everything." Tala's laughter joined the song of the fish, echoing across the crystal waters of Elysia, a sound of pure joy that needed no translation in any language across the vast, star-filled expanse that no longer seemed quite so divided.